Hello, and welcome to another edition of All or Not According to Jack with your host, Jack Toledano. And God, this glare is freaking annoying the shit out of me on my glasses, but if I don't wear them, I won't be able to see you. So bear with me, folks. So, not only are we in the Seinfeld living room slash uh, dining area slash kitchen slash alcove to the bathroom, or the bedroom, as Elaine's father would say. Uh, I am wearing my Giants tonight, my Giant shirt, to wish these guys good luck on Sunday against those big bad Minnesota Vikings. Uh, so, funny story. The only time they've ever talked about the Giants on Seinfeld was a time where I think it was Elaine and Kramer and Elaine's date at the time, Joel Rifkin, went to a Giant game, and it's so funny. So Kramer had to get his tickets to will call, and basically what happened was, you know, his contact was Joel Rifkin. So Bob Shepard, who also was the PA announcer and voice of the Yankees, now batting Don Mattingly. Incidentally, I met him once, years upon years ago, when I used to work at this horrible place called the Custom Shop in the Miracle Mile in Manhasset, New York. But that's a story for another day. Hated that freaking job. Anywho, so you have you had Bob Shepard say, "Joe Rifkin, please come to the press box," or "please come to the ticket office." And Lawrence Taylor does one of these where he looks up because, Joel Rifkin, the serial killer, who ironically, scary enough, grew up not too far from where I live. Pretty scary, but pretty funny story. Thought I'd share that. But enough banter. We're here to talk about, wrap up the series, top 5 episodes of seasons 8 and 9. So let's go to the PowerPoint. Share screen. There we go. So season 8. And ironically, this was the season that Larry David, he actually left the show amicably. I guess the stress got to him too much after season 7, so he needed to take a break and enjoy his money, and so on and so forth. But there were still some good episodes in season 8. So the very first one we're going to talk about. So there's one honorable mention, and it's funny. So the last recording that I did, top metal albums of 2005, I even said at one point, yada yada yada. Pretty annoying term, but they used it to comedic effect. That was the episode where Jerry was accusing Dr. Watley of converting to Judaism just so he could be a comedian, because I guess if you're Jewish, then you're supposedly a great comedian. So Kramer instead turned around and said that Jerry was an anti-dentite. You're a rabid anti-dentite. And then George with the famous line, she wouldn't yada yada sex. Where she said yada yada yada, blah blah blah. And to hide the fact that she had sex with somebody else. But funny stuff. Okay, so episode 5, my 5th ranked episode of season 8, the pothole. So George Steinbrenner gives George a holy cow, a Phil Rizzuto keyring. Holy cow! I met him too one time. My dad and I when I was buying this house, we went to a home show at the Nassau Coliseum, and Phil Rizzuto was there. And if you got a quote for a mortgage rate, you got a signed autograph, and you got to sit with take a picture with Phil Rizzuto, which was pretty cool. But the funniest part of this episode was Jerry, knucklehead that he is, dates another gorgeous woman, Kristen Davis. You may know her from Sex in the City, but he's dating her. And dummy that he is, forgets his toothbrush, uses Kristen's, and drops it in the toilet and doesn't tell her. And then he refuses to kiss her afterwards. Talk about a conundrum. Only Jerry date the most beautiful women in New York and fuck it up. Way to go, Jerry. Number 4, the Andrea Doria. This so the premise of this episode is that George is trying to get this really nice apartment in a nice building for a very good rate, and I think it's even rent controlled, which is, you get a rent controlled apartment in Manhattan, you freaking hold on to it for dear life. But so he's making his case to this panel as to how his parents made his life a living hell growing up, against going up against an Andrea Doria survivor. But at the very end, he loses out to basically a guy that was dating Elaine, who was a bad breaker upper. He wouldn't just break up with people, he would insult them. And we're talking bad insults where he called Elaine big head. And in the beginning, she didn't think much of it until, uh, you know, she's sitting in a cab and the guy kept telling, "Oh, move your head, move your head." So then it started to really get to her. So she beats the crap out of him in a restaurant, jibs a fork into his forehead. So then he gets the apartment from George, and he said, "Yeah, cheer up, Chinless." And George does one of these. Funny episode. Check it out. Okay, number 3, the little kicks. Uh, to see it is to believe it. Elaine probably doing the worst dancing you would ever see. She she would stick her leg out and twist her foot, contort her feet, so you know, looked ridiculous. So George and Jerry at separate times witness her dancing, and they say, "Sweet fancy Moses." Yeah, Elaine, knucklehead or big head. Number 2, the chicken roaster. Kenny Rogers chicken, which ironically it was in my town for a short time, but and I kind of liked it, but you know, just like anything else, it didn't last long. Uh, but Kramer Newman loved the chicken, so I don't know how Kramer convinced Jerry to switch apartments with him. So, well, meanwhile, that neon sign of the Kenny Rogers roasters got Jerry so stressed. "Oh, I'm stressed." Basically acting like Kramer. But then the jig was up when he went to get chicken at the chicken roaster place, and Newman was there. And he's like, "Hiya, Newman. What's that, broccoli? You wouldn't eat broccoli if it were deep fried in chocolate sauce." So Newman gives up the whole gig. "Oh, stinking vile weed." So the gig was up. They switched apartments again. Kenny Rogers Roasters went out of business once and for all, just like it did in the town where I live. Damn, I think they were only in existence for what, 2, 3 years maybe. Sad. All right, so number 1 of season 8, the Bizarro Jerry. So Elaine, and you can see it in the picture here, Elaine befriends a second group of guys who are the polar opposite of Jerry, George, and Kramer. these guys are actually nice to each other. And what's more, the Jerry counterpart is actually nice to Newman's counterpart. They even shake hands, and I think he called him Norman. Very funny. So what else do we have? That's Elaine doing the big kicks. Uh, Dr. Watley, the anti-dentite, and then Kristen Davis brushing away with a toilet bowl toothbrush, uh, with toilet bowl water having infiltrated her toothbrush. Very sad. Okay, so that's season 8. Season 9, the very last season. We have 2 honorable mentions. The apology. So basically that one, so one storyline where George is trying to get an apology from a guy who was in AA and going through all the steps of AA, but the guy doesn't really want to apologize to George. Who would? Uh, Jerry is dating this girl who likes to be naked, another beautiful girl, and she's actually naked in his apartment. She looks gorgeous, brushing her hair, but the bad naked is when she tries to open a pickle jar and contorts her feet in such a way that makes her unattractive. Meanwhile, he asks Elaine, "Oh, why can't men be attractive naked?" She's like, "Oh, you're like close to apes." I forget what she said, but it was pretty funny. Everything on your bodies are functional. But the funniest part is the germaphobe. Uh, Whereas Elaine has this coworker who doesn't want to be close to Elaine because Elaine's had intercourse with a lot of men. The funniest scene was where Elaine, I think she licks her doorknob, then she takes her keyboard. Oh, I can't get the keyboard. She takes her keyboard and rubs it on her ass. That was funny. And then the woman ends up in the hospital, and believe it or not, even David Putty, she was very sympathetic to this woman. Even he said that Elaine grossed him out with his slippers that were were like what do you call biological death traps. All right, the apology. The next one, the Serenity Now. Serenity Now. Serenity Now. I think I told you all that I have I am the great uncle of a girl whose that name is actually Serenity. Hi, Serenity, Riley, how you two doing? And Jackson, but mainly Serenity because you you got a Seinfeld episode named after you. The other funny thing, George's nemesis, Lloyd Braun, they both get hired to do computer sales in Frank and Estelle's uh, garage. And of course, George cheats his way to winning. All right. Episode 5, The Merv Griffin Show. So Kramer pulls uh, the Merv Griffin set out of a dumpster, puts it back together in his apartment, takes it seriously, even plays the music, the entrance music as everybody comes onto his quote unquote show, variety show. Uh, Meanwhile, Jerry's dating a girl who is a toy collector, and she's got some of the greatest toys, but she won't let him play with them. She has no problem having intercourse and making out with Jerry, but she will not let him touch her toys. So what does Jerry do? He enlists Lane and George to get her drunk with boxes of wine and turkey, which has tryptophan and makes people sleepy. Too funny. Oh, and also Elaine has a sidler in the office who sidles up to her. But at the very end, uh, Kramer invites the toy girl to the Merv Griffin show, and she confronts Jerry. It was more of a seemed like more of a Dr. Phil episode than a Merv Griffin episode. You think you can play with my toys anytime you want? All right, so that's the Merv Griffin show. Episode 4, The Dealership. Again, this is another episode where David Putty shines. So David Putty, he gets promoted from being an auto mechanic to a car dealership salesperson. So Jerry says, "Oh, I thought you were a grease monkey." I don't care for that term. High five. Too funny. Meanwhile, George, who very much like Larry David, uh, is very socially awkward, and he complains because he's hungry. He's waiting for Jerry at the dealership. And so he tries to get something out of the vending machine, but it gets stuck. So he can't get it. He gets somebody to try and get clear the vending machine, and the guy takes the Twix cookie, and all hell breaks loose. And then at the very end, Kramer, he's going out for a ride with a guy, testing out a car on the LIE. They have very little gas, and it's reminiscent of Thelma and Louise, where they try to drive as far as they can with as little gas as possible until the tank is empty. Kramer bails. So that's the dealership. Episode number 3, The Betrayal. This is a very interesting, unique episode. So now they've done episodes where the episodes have been in real time, such as the parking spot and the what's the other one? The parking garage. This one, every scene goes in reverse order. So they show you the most recent scene, and then they go backwards with every scene. So in that way, they're able to get Susan Ross in for a cameo, because they bring the show back to a place where she was still alive. George tries to be taller by putting on a pair of Timberlands, so he can never take the Timberlands off, because his date, who cheats on him anyway, doesn't want him to be shorter than he is. Kramer throws a snowball at this guy FDR, and FDR wishes him dead. So Kramer goes through the whole episode to try and wish on a falling star, and all these take Newman's birthday wish, and so he doesn't have to drop dead. But the best was everybody trying to get information out of Elaine by feeding her peach schnapps. Too funny. And of course, Sue Ellen Mischke, hottie that she is, rips the nose ring out of Elaine's nose. That must have hurt. Okay, number 2, the finale. So I think everybody knows what happens in this episode. It's the very last episode. Larry David returns to write the episode. It's a 2-parter. Basically, there's a parade of people throughout the 9 seasons that come to testify against the foursome. At the very end, they're placed in jail for a year, and they talk about the buttons being out of place and on George's shirt, same as they did in the pilot episode. But me talking about it won't do it any justice. You kind of have to check it out. Some very funny parts. Pretty much everybody was in the episode, whether they had a speaking part or not. Okay, number 1, the strike. And that's the episode with Festivus for the rest of us. And Jerry dates a Two-Face. In one light, she's attractive. In the other light, she's very unattractive. but Frank steals the show with Festivus. I got a lot of problems with you people, and you're going to hear about it. So, being that this is the last, we're closing shop on this episode. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the pictures one at a time. So, this episode didn't make the cut, but this is from the Puerto Rican Day Parade. Ironically, that very funny episode, but it got a lot of people up in arms about the fact that the burning of the Puerto Rican flag, which Kramer did by accident when he dropped a sparkler on the flag, dummy that he is. Next one. This is Jackie Childs representing the foursome in court up in Latham, Massachusetts. Ironically, the judge behind him is Judge Arthur Vandelay. So George, who's been using that name Vandelay the whole time, the whole series, thought that it was a good omen. The Merv Griffin Show. This is Festivus, where Frank is airing the grievances to the whole crowd. Kroger, my son says your company stinks. Good old Frank. And the last one, four of them in jail, spending a year in the holding cell, but they're going to spend a year in jail for the law that says that they should have helped the heavy-set fellow, and they did nothing to help him. Instead, they sat there and they made fun of him. What a way to end the show. So that concludes Seinfeld, top 5 episodes by season. I do have one more slide to share with you. So now that this is concluded, we're eventually going to do a very similar treatment with Curb Your Enthusiasm. Larry David. So looking through the pictures, you have Larry David with the Seinfeld crowd. They do something of maybe a 10-15 minute reunion. It's where he's with his friend. What the hell's this guy's name? I can't think of his name, but he used to be Super Dave Osborne. Funny guy. He's a foil for a lot of Larry's antics. And then, of course, there's Larry with Cheryl, Larry with Leon, Jeff with Susie, Susie yelling at Larry like she always does. I mean, as socially as awkward as Larry is, who could ask for a better friend than Jeff? Susie Green saying, cursing like she usually does. Imagine walking down the street and seeing so many Larry Davids. Too funny. Oh, Funkhauser is his name. That's right. Very funny guy. So that's that. So let's stop sharing. So upcoming, we have some more top metal by year coming up. As I mentioned, I think I had said that there would be a guest eventually, hoping to get a new guest. He has never been on my show before, but he probably will not only be his first appearance, but also my first guest of 2023. So stay tuned for that. Also, I am writing some episodes for Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm not exactly sure of the format, but I'm gonna break it up into several episodes, talking about the top episodes by season. And that will probably encompass about 5 episodes. So stay tuned for that. As my top metal winds down, I have another show idea that I'm working on. That may take another month or two to come to fruition, but once it does, hopefully you will enjoy it. So stay tuned, have a good one, and I will see you soon. Bye.